Universal Casualty, Super Q,
los Miami Dolphins y tú rumbo al Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, rumbo al Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, rumbo al Super Bowl. Son los Dolphins, nuestros Miami Dolphins, el team número 1 en toda la nación. Y son ellos orgullo de Miami y de todos los latinos en la capital del sol. Con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, rumbo al Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, rumbo al Super Bowl. Este año no me hablen de los Redskins, no me hablen de los Chargers, ni de los Dallas Cowboys, porque los Dolphins son número 1 y lo demostrarán al llegar al Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, rumbo al Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, rumbo al Super Bowl. Nuestra línea está mejor que nunca y nuestra defensiva fue siempre la mejor. Y es por eso que yo no tengo duda que los Miami Dolphins ganarán el Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, rumbo al Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, rumbo al Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins me voy para el Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins me voy para el Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins me voy para el Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins me voy para el Super Bowl.
Universal Casualty
Y Super Q, los primeros. Bueno, caballeros, todo el mundo que cante con nosotros. Dame una D, dame una O, dame una L, dame una P, una H, una I, una N, una S, que es lo que tenemos. Miami Dolphins. Me voy para el Super Bowl. 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 Me voy para el Super Bowl.
You're listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network.
There's a team that's in our heart. Hello, Miami Dolphin fans, and welcome to the Same Old Dolphin Show, sponsored by BetUS, part of the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network. I'm Josh Katzker. With me today and every day is my brother from the exact same mother, Aaron the Brain. Aaron, say hello to the people.
Hello to the people.
Well, Brain, the Dolphins are no longer on a 5-game winning streak. They are now on a 1-game losing streak, losing 33-17 to the San Francisco 49ers in San Francisco. A pretty brutal loss. I think, as we talked about last week, is or in the preview show, really, if the Dolphins were going to lose one of the 3 games in this gauntlet, this was the one that you could kind of most afford to lose. And I think every Dolphin fan to a man would have been perfectly fine coming out of this game with the Dolphins having lost a close, hard-fought game where it was just 2 teams giving each other their best and, the Dolphins just ending up a little bit falling just short. I think that would have been a result that I think would be easy to swallow. What makes this game difficult to swallow for me as a Dolphin fan, and I'll give you your chance to give you your reaction in a minute. But I think what is hardest for me coming out of this game is that the Dolphins didn't play their best in this game. Without even talking about the defense, which we will get into, offensively, this was a game where the Dolphins just didn't have it. Tua missing throws that he just does not miss, and missing by a lot. It wasn't like he was trying to put balls into tight windows. He was passing to receivers who were wide open, and he was missing them. And so that was difficult to swallow. And then there were too many occasions in this game where he was hitting guys with the ball, and they just weren't making the catch. So it was just a lot of failure to execute on the offensive side of the ball. And on defense, I mean, we can get into Josh Boyer's game plan defensively and how it just did not really work out terribly well with trying to bring lots and lots of pressure after what turned out to be a rookie quarterback, because Jimmy Garoppolo goes down on the first drive for the 49ers with a broken foot. We now know he's out for the season. And here comes Mr. Irrelevant, literally Mr. Irrelevant, the last guy taken in the 2022 NFL draft. And he comes in and has himself a game. Brock Purdy goes 25 of 37 for 210 yards, throws 2 touchdown passes. Also had an interception as well, but largely did everything that he needed to do to operate within himself and let the rest of his offense do the work. And Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel, and not so much George Kittle, but definitely Brandon Ayuk was in there as well. The 49ers offense did what they needed to do, and the Dolphins struggled to slow it down. And the end result is the Dolphins losing 33-17. And granted, it was 26-17, and at that point it was largely over, with the Dolphins needing to score a touchdown and kick an onside kick with any chance to win at about the 2-minute warning. And then Skylar Thompson comes into the game and throws a pick 6 on his only pass. And then, on top of all of that, Tua Tagovailoa now also has an ankle injury, and we don't know what his status is going to be as we go through this week on the road. By the way, team staying out in California before next Sunday's primetime game against the Los Angeles Chargers. So this was a game where the Dolphins just didn't really have it, short of this one fantastic 75-yard touchdown pass that they had on their first play from scrimmage, when you were suddenly okay, hold on. The Dolphins came to play today. But then from that point on, it was really just this Dolphins offense was in fits and starts the whole day. And, and the thing that really makes me upset is that a lot of the reason that it didn't work was not down to the fact that the 49ers defense was doing such a spectacular job that the Dolphins couldn't do things. It was really just came down to just failing to execute. And that's what's so frustrating.
Yeah. And look, obviously it's frustrating. And I take solace in the fact that they didn't play their best football. If they played their best football and they lost by 2 touchdowns, that would be far more concerning. The fact that this was a very close game because the Dolphins played a poor game it obviously you don't like to see the Dolphins go into a big game in December and play a poor game. That's very same old Dolphins. But at the same time, you'd much rather lose a game where, you didn't play your best football than lose a game where you did play your best football and you feel like you're just, an inferior team. You come out of this and you say, well, look, this is what we could have done differently. Tua could have played a lot better. Obviously, Nick Bosa is a game wrecker. And you knew you were going to be fighting an uphill battle in that regard. And the Dolphins did what they could to double him at times and throw extra people his way and scheme the game away from him. But at the end of the day, great players are going to make plays in some big time moments. And so you got to tip your cap a little bit to Nick Bosa. But I came away more concerned, not with the offense. I came away much more, and obviously if Tua is hurt, that's going to be the biggest concern. But if Tua is healthy, if Waddle's healthy, and the rest of it, then the offense is going to be fine. I really, nothing that I saw in this game really sets off alarm bells about the offense. I just think Tua was a little bit off. And against a really good defense and a good team in general, you can't afford to be a little bit off. And when your quarterback is a little bit off, you need some other guys to step up and make some plays. And the only guy that was making plays was Tyreek Hill and nobody else. And that goes for the defensive side of the football as well, because on the defensive side of the football, you needed guys to come up and make plays, and you needed the defense to play well. And the fact that that every time the Dolphins really needed a stop, San Francisco was basically driving right down the field at will, and yes, they did it with a third string quarterback, the last guy drafted. And that makes it a lot more hard to stomach and makes you feel a lot worse about this defense. And that is a conversation that's going to continue to be had as we go down the stretches. Is this Dolphins defense good enough? Today, they were nowhere near good enough. And absolutely, it's frustrating for it to happen against a rookie 7th round quarterback, but you also got to tip your cap a little bit because the guy did not play like a rookie 7th round quarterback. He made some pretty impressive throws. He showed a hell of a lot of moxie, a whole lot more moxie than most rookie quarterbacks in general, let alone a Mr. Irrelevant. It doesn't ease the pain anymore, but it's not like, this guy was out there and he was running around like a chicken with his head cut off and didn't know what he was doing, and the Dolphins still lost the game. The guy played a good game. And the 49ers deserved to win, and they won in every aspect of the game. So the question isn't, the question is really, how does the team bounce back? What do they look like coming off of this loss? And is the I think Tua, as long as he's healthy, this offense will be fine. But is this defense good enough? Because if you can't stop Brock Purdy, you're going to have your hands full with Justin Herbert. You're definitely going to have your hands full with Josh Allen. And if you find yourself at 8-6, you're putting yourself in a position where you could very easily find yourself fighting for your playoff lives.
Yeah, and you're up against Justin Herbert, Josh Allen, and Aaron Rodgers in the next 3 games to come. And, Aaron Rodgers, I know, hasn't looked like himself, but you know what? The Packers went in and won their game today on the road in Chicago. I mean, granted, it's against the Bears, but still. So, I'm not doubting Aaron Rodgers. So, yes, this defense has a lot to do. And I question a lot of the game plan, I think, defensively. And what is unclear to me was if Boyer switched his game plan around, with the idea being that we're just going to bring a lot of pressure and try to get to this, 7th round rookie and, force him off his game that way. But the problem is you're bringing all of that pressure and you're still not getting home. I think at the end of the day, I think they only sacked Purdy 3 times in this game. So for all of the pressure that you were bringing, you weren't getting home. And then the problem is when you're not getting home, when you're bringing all that pressure, you're leaving all this open space in the rest of the field. So you've got Jordan Mason breaking off big runs. You've got, Brandon Ayuk running great routes. You've got Deebo Samuel, who's just impossible to tackle anyway. The whole thing was just on both sides of the ball. It was just such a disappointing performance from the Dolphins. And I think that's what's so disappointing, is because this was an opportunity for the Miami Dolphins to really shift the narrative, and they completely failed to do it. And I'm not saying at this point that they are the same old Dolphins, because I'm not ready to do that yet. But what I will say is that this was a very same old Dolphins performance, and it now puts this team in a position where they absolutely have to have a huge bounce back performance and win over the LA Chargers next week, or then suddenly they're 8-5 traveling to Buffalo, and their entire season is getting ready to bounce off the rails. And, here's the thing. They got a little bit of a break today with the Raiders knocking off the Chargers. So it drops the Chargers down to 6-6. But if the Chargers beat the Dolphins next week, the Dolphins fail to win that game, suddenly now you're 8-5 if you lose that game next week. And suddenly you're going into Buffalo, and the walls are starting to close in around you for those final 3 games of the season. We've seen this before with the Miami Dolphins. So I'm not saying they're the same old Dolphins at this point, but they've got a lot of work to do to avoid becoming the same old Dolphins, right? So this was a very disappointing performance. Can they bounce back? That's the question. But we need to get into it. We also need to get into some of the choices that this team made on offense in this game. And we're going to get into that here in just a moment. But first, a reminder, if you're not doing so already, make sure you're following us on Twitter. I'm at Amplified to Rock. He's at Aaron the Brain. That's at Aaron the Brain. The show is at Same Old Dolphins. We invite you to download, rate, review, and subscribe to the Same Old Dolphins show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, anywhere you get your podcasts. Subscribe to the Dolphins Talk YouTube channel. Shout out to everybody watching live on the Dolphins Talk YouTube channel. The I Am a Miami Dolphin Fan Facebook page. What's up? Thank you for watching the show live. We appreciate you being here and venting along with us this evening. Go ahead and do us a solid, if you will. If you're watching the show live, go ahead and like this video, share it with your friends. We appreciate it. And subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that already. Make sure you turn on notifications so you know every time we go live here on the channel. And finally, last but not least, make sure you're visiting DolphinsTalk.com each and every day. It's your one-stop shop for all things Miami Dolphins. So you want to make sure you're visiting DolphinsTalk.com each and every day, multiple times a day, especially as we're going to be curious to hear about the status of Tua Tagovailoa this week. Brain, we're going to talk about this offensive performance, and first and foremost, we got to talk about the fact that the Dolphins did not even try to establish the running game in this game. They ran the ball a total of 8 times in this game, Brain. They ran the ball 8 times. 8. Mm-hmm. 8 times they ran the ball. That is not good. 8 rushing plays for 33 yards. That's good. The fact that they only ran the ball 8 times is a problem. Why? Why aren't they running the ball more, or at least making some sort of attempt to establish the run? I know the San Francisco 49ers have a strong defensive front, and maybe McDaniel just had no confidence in this offensive line to be able to do anything, create any kind of holes for the running game. But to only run the ball 8 times feels like, I don't know, it feels like they left a lot out there.
I think it's an overreaction. I think you got to look at the flow of the game. The Dolphins' first play of the game, they hit a 75-yard touchdown pass. Their next drive, they go 3 and out. They ran the ball once. The next drive, they go 3 and out. They ran the ball once. The following drive, remember, up to this point, that's where you had Tua had thrown, I think, 5 incomplete passes in a row, and you're trying to get him into a rhythm. Effectively, the running game then turns into your short passing game. At the same time, the 49ers are the best run defense in the league. So look, if your running game is your short passing game, that's fine. It's not a problem. They move the ball well, getting that short passing game going. Ultimately, on that drive, it stalled out in the red zone. They had to kick a field goal, but you're now tied at 10. You get the ball back. After that, you've basically got 30 seconds left. So you're just, trying to trying to put something together, right before the half. Or I guess, no, you didn't get it right before the half, but you took a couple of shots there. When you got the ball back midway in the second quarter, if you want to fault them there and said, well, they could have gone after, the 49ers and tried to establish a running game. Sure, you can fault them there, but I mean, what are you going to do? You're going up against the best run defense in the league. Your strength offensively all season is your passing game with Tua and Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. You throw the ball on first down. That's the best down to throw the ball. Now, if you throw an incomplete pass on first down because Tua is inaccurate, well, 2nd and 10 is a horrible down to run the football. It's statistically, it's one of the dumbest plays that you can do as an offensive play caller is run the ball on 2nd and 10, because more often than not, you're going to put yourself in a 3rd and long situation. The problem isn't that they didn't run the football. The problem is that they couldn't establish any offense in general because Tua just didn't play as well. That's the issue. And then you get down to the second half and you've got 2 straight drives that end in interceptions. Then you get a touchdown. And then the next time you get the ball, you're down 2 scores. You get a long touchdown pass. Like, it's not like the Dolphins had a bunch of opportunities to run the football. They took a few shots, here and there. They didn't have a ton of success. It wasn't that bad, but it's just the way the flow of the game worked. If they would have put together more drives, then they would have had more opportunities to run the football. I don't really blame Mike McDaniel for that. At the end of the day, if Tua's sharp, we're not complaining about how much the Dolphins or how little the Dolphins ran the football. We're just talking about the Dolphins offense looking really good and probably talking about a 6th straight victory.
So do you think that this is just a bad game from Tua and it was just a stinker? Like, do you think there's stuff to read into that? Because this is going to be a thing, whether you want to hear about it or not as a Miami Dolphin fan, it's going to be a big topic of conversation this week. The fact that Tua came out small in this big opportunity. And it was a bad game. And that's the thing that's frustrating me, because one of the things I saw somebody put a take out there that the Dolphins were getting out-coached in this game. Kyle Shanahan was out coaching Mike McDaniel. And I don't know about that, because offensively, everything was right there for the Dolphins. The execution just wasn't there. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like guys weren't running the right routes. It came down to Tua was just, I don't know. It was not a great day for Tua. He was just missing left and right and just looked off all day long, with the exception of that very first pass and the touchdown pass to Tyreek Hill. There were some moments of flashes in the second half where he looked good, but for the most part, it was just, man, this was just a stinker of a game for QB1.
It was a bad game, and it was against a good defense. I think that, I don't think that Tua choked. Let me get that out of the way here. The guy's entitled to be a little bit off every now and then. I think part of it is early in the game, there was a play on the team's second drive where he threw the pass. I think it was to Waddle, or I don't remember exactly who it was to, but Fred Warner got a hand on it.
Yep.
Ball was otherwise perfectly thrown, perfectly executed, just a hell of a play by a hell of a player. And I think that was in his mind. The remainder of the first half was, if I'm going to complete that pass over top of the linebacker, I probably need to get it up a little bit higher, and I need to throw it maybe a yard or 2 deeper. And I think he just overcompensated a little bit. And that's kind of something that happens when you play better defenses. And yes, does Tua need to be better? Absolutely, he needs to be better. And it wasn't like that was the case on every single throw, but I think that was part of it. I also think that on a couple of his throws, there was more pressure because you're going up against a guy like Nick Bosa that was bearing down on him and in his lap. And I think that factored in as well. So
yeah, but I'll say this. I thought largely, I think the Dolphins, for the most part, did a pretty good job mitigating the San Francisco pass rush in this game. obviously sometimes it was a little bit too much, and Nick Bosa is just an individual that is just very difficult to account for all the time. But for the most part, it wasn't like Tua was getting rushed around all day long today. But the offensive
that's
line,
the margin of error, though. Like that,
right,
like
of course.
when you've got to make a few big throws, and on a couple of them, you've got guys at your feet, or you've got guys, come climbing up your back, then that's going to factor in on those throws being less than accurate. So you either need your guys to step up and make a big catch, which that didn't happen today, or you need Tua to put the ball on the money and play a Herculean game of football. And he didn't play a Herculean game of football. So, are we going to get down on Tua because he didn't play like Patrick Mahomes for a game? If your expectation is that Tua is the best quarterback in the league, then yeah, you're going to be pissed off at today's game. But you got to understand that he's not, even if he is a legitimate MVP candidate at the end of the year, he's going to have some games where he is a little bit off. It just, you need to have, this was the perfect storm of Tua was a little bit off. The defense didn't do their job. Nobody stepped up and made their plays, and you're going up against a really good football team. That's not a formula and you're on the road. That's a formula that's not going to add up to a W most weeks.
Yeah, and it certainly didn't add up to a W here. Just very, very disappointing. What about on the other side of the ball, Brain? What about the defensive struggles here? Because, like I mentioned earlier, it seemed like Boyer's game plan here was, I'm going to bring a ton of pressure on this quarterback, and they just failed to get home time and time again.
What are you going to do? If Boyer sits back in a zone against a rookie 7th round quarterback and he gets picked apart and they get picked apart that way, or if they give up a bunch of yards on the ground because they're sitting back in zone against the 7th round rookie quarterback, then Boyer's going to get killed. If you're going to get beat by a 7th round rookie quarterback, get beat giving them your best shot. I thought the Dolphins defense, for schematically, you can nitpick a couple of play calls, but at the end of the day, it comes down to execution. They just didn't beat their man. And you got to tip your cap to the opposing quarterback who made the throws that he had to make. I think the more concerning thing is that we couldn't stop their running game. All through this win streak, and all through the season, it's been touted as, that Justin Fields game was kind of an aberration because he's Justin Fields, but against traditional running games, this Dolphins defense is great. And that's true. That's the way it's been all season. But today they played a team that hangs their hat on running the football. And when they needed to run the football, they ran the football at will against Miami. And they did it without us really needing to stress out the back end of our defense because they were doing it with a 7th round rookie quarterback. That's the more concerning thing, is that when you go into a game against a team that is a legitimate contender that has the ability to run the football and be physical, can you stand up to the challenge? These are the kinds of games that the same old Dolphins got their asses kicked routinely. And it happened again. We're used to that being a team in purple and gold and black on the other side of the football, and the Baltimore Ravens doing that to us. Well, the San Francisco 49ers are essentially the Baltimore Ravens of the NFC, and they put it on us. So it still remains to be seen. Can this Dolphins team step up? I said going into this game, I'm not going to be terribly concerned if they lose this game, because if you win 1 out of the 3, then I think you feel pretty good about where you sit in the big picture. And you're going up next week against a team that's a 500 team right now that just lost a huge game. It's not going to be an easy game. It's going to be a road game. It's on prime time, and it's going to be against a team that's fighting for their lives, and they have a lot of talent. So it's not going to be a pushover. But if you're a for real team, you're a legit contending team, it's okay to lose a game at San Francisco. It's okay to lose a game at Buffalo, but you can't lose all three. The game to win is next week. If they lose that game, that's when things get really serious, and you could start to panic a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. Yeah, obviously that next week has suddenly become a must-win game for the Miami Dolphins. It's one of those things where it's just, I feel like, I don't know that I necessarily expected the Dolphins to win this game. It was certainly set up for them to win early on, and they failed to take advantage of it. But it's just one of those things where I think perhaps maybe I'll try to talk this through at first person. I think that I was beginning to really believe that this is a team that had the ability to and the potential to be a really special football team. And this performance today reminded me of what they are, in fact, of how big all of their shortcomings can be and how amplified they can all be and that they're there. And the thing is that they all sort of showed themselves in the same game today. And that was the thing that was so frustrating for me. So there is now still there is still room for the Dolphins to recover from this. And quite frankly, even if they were to lose next week to the Chargers because of the fact that the Chargers lost today, even if they lose next week to the Chargers, they would still be sitting in a playoff spot. So it's not like the sky is falling and everything is bad. But the fact of the matter is, they're sort of, it gets to that point where it's close to teetering on the edge. So let's hope that this is just one single bad game for the Miami Dolphins and they can bounce back and have a big performance next week against the Chargers. One thing that we don't know, what is the status of our quarterback? Because he was taken out of the game late after the 49ers hit that field goal, the 50-yard field goal by Robbie Gould to go up 10 or 9 late in the game. That was at that point at the 2-minute warning. Tua did not come back out into the game at that point. That was when they mentioned something about him having an ankle injury. What was noted is that when he came to the podium for the post-game press conference, he was walking with a significant limp. Now, what does that mean? I don't know. But if he's nursing an ankle injury, and if there's any chance that he can't go on Sunday, that is another significant setback, because we've already seen what this team looks like when he is not the quarterback. And it's just talk about wheels falling off. That would be wheels falling off for the Miami Dolphins.
Well, I'll go this far. Like, if it's a sprained ankle, you got to play.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it doesn't matter. Like, unless you're like, you can't walk, Tua's got to play, because you cannot go into next week's game and, have Skylar Thompson if Tua is capable of playing. And Tua, if he's 70%, has to be your quarterback next week. And if he's not, then that's part of the narrative on Tua.
Well, we just got a tweet here from NFL's Tom Pelissero. He says Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa, who suffered an ankle injury late in today's loss to the 49ers, could have returned to the game per sources. The injury isn't believed to be significant, and Tua is expected to start next Sunday night versus the Chargers. So Good. There we go.
Yeah, put that to bed, because unless it was any kind of serious injury, like even if it was like any kind of pain management thing, Tua was going to have to play. So, all right, put that to bed early. We know we've got our quarterback. You just got to play better. And the team as a whole has to play better. And the good news is you're not going to play a team as good as running the football traditionally than the San Francisco 49ers the rest of the season. Maybe the New England Patriots.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, maybe the New England Patriots, but if you take care of business next week against the Chargers, then by the time you get to that Patriots game, you may have already wrapped up a spot in the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, so I guess here's the thing that I'll say. I guess because I'm pretty down right now on the team, and I'm feeling kind of lousy about this performance. But I guess here's the thing that you say. If Robbie Gould misses that 50-yard field goal at the end of the game.
Forget about Robbie Gould missing the field goal. This was like the Minnesota game earlier.
Yeah, I mean, the Dolphins had the ball in the second half with the opportunity to go down the field and take the lead in this game in the fourth quarter. The opportunity was there. Again, you had Mike Gesicki not making the catch, and maybe it wasn't the best pass from Tua. Tua says there was communication issues on the play. But regardless, it was all right there. This was, in fact, still a game that the Dolphins had it in their power to win, in spite of how bad they played for most of the game.
The idea that, like, the idea of any Dolphin fan being depressed about this game is silly, because the only thing that it could be is because you lost to Brock Purdy. Because if Jimmy Garoppolo was the quarterback there, that's a quarterback that is capable of getting a team to a Super Bowl and of getting a team to an NFC championship game just a year ago. Brock Purdy played very much like Jimmy Garoppolo in this football game. He has the luxury of having a team that can run the football around him. The defense did their job. He had the benefit of not playing from behind. Basically, after his first possession of the game, he was basically playing with a lead the entire time, the entire second half, and the kid played well. The Dolphins' defense in general isn't as good as we've given him credit for, and that's the biggest takeaway. If Tua plays great, might they win this game? Sure, because if Tua plays like an MVP candidate, they can literally win any game that they play this season against any team in the league if Tua plays a perfect game. They have enough weapons and they have the capability of doing it. That's what you're excited about. The problem is, and this is what we were wondering, is when the offense goes up against a good defense and they don't play a perfect game, is Miami's defense good enough to carry them against good football teams? In this stretch, which just started, they're 0 for 1.
Yeah, they've got to, they've got to got to correct it. They've got to bounce back, and they've got to have a big game against the Chargers. That's where we're at. We're kind of on that. We're on that point where this can go.
I want to address this.
Cap for Life. Cap for Life says, you say it's ridiculous to be upset about a loss now, but if we lose next week, you'll be singing a different tune. I'm telling you, bro, you've seen this movie just like I have. You know what can happen.
Absolutely. And that's why what winning this game would have done is it would have taken the pressure off. And you would have said, all right, even if we lose, even though we don't want to lose, even if we lose these next two games, our playoff spot looks secure. We're okay. Because then you just need to win 2 of the last 3 against, Green Bay, New England, and the Jets. And if you win 1 of these next 2 after you beat San Francisco, which you're obviously feeling good about if you had beaten San Francisco, then look, we'd all be feeling great. But I'm not going to be overly concerned unless they do lose next week. So, yeah, this makes next week a huge game. If they lose next week, I will absolutely be singing a different tune. But they haven't lost next week. They're not playing the San Francisco 49ers next week. They're playing a 6-6 Los Angeles Chargers team. Could we lose that game? Absolutely, we could lose that game. But should we lose that game? Not if we're for real. So lose that game, and you're right. Then I'm fully in panic mode. But you win next week, and you're basically about to clinch a playoff spot. If the Dolphins win next week, they literally just have to beat the Patriots, and they will win and they will be in the playoffs.
I mean, that's true. That is a good point. that is worth noting that as bad as it can get, if they should lose that game next week, they have to, if they can win that game, that would knock the Chargers down to 7 losses. They'd still be sitting at 4 losses. Depending on what the Patriots do, you might find yourselves 3 games clear of the teams outside of the playoff picture.
Well,
So,
and it doesn't even matter what the Patriots do, because the Patriots already have 6 losses and the Chargers would have 7 losses. We've already beaten the Patriots, and we would own the head-to-head against the Chargers. So all we would have to do is beat the Chargers and beat the Patriots, and both of those teams would be guaranteed to have 7 losses. We'd be guaranteed to have at least 10 wins, and we'd own the tiebreaker over them.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a big opportunity for the Dolphins. So it's not all doom and gloom in the grand scheme of things, right? In the grand scheme of things, if you look at the season from the wide view, the loss today is not the end of the world. It's what we said coming into the game, that a loss in this game wouldn't be the end of the world. For me, I'm down because it wasn't a great performance. It was just a bad game from the Dolphins. And I've seen too many Dolphins teams put up bad performances in games in December, in big games. Now, obviously, the 49ers are a really good team, and so the narrative isn't defined by this game, but the narrative is largely going to be defined by what happens in the next game. So now there's very little margin of error. You have to win that game against the Chargers. You just have to, because otherwise it's putting you in a position where, I mean, it's still a fairly clear road to the playoffs, but it's bumpier with that loss because you're giving the Chargers life, and then they would hold that tiebreaker over you. And, that's not a situation you want to find yourself in. So anyway, that's where we are. Pelissero sent a follow-up tweet that I want to share with you here. So let me get that to you. He says, Tua left the game after the sack strip touchdown with under 2 minutes to go. At that point, putting him back into the game behind backup offensive tackles wasn't worth the risk, but the ankle isn't expected to be much of an issue going forward. So there it is. So it sounds like we can relax that Tua will, in fact, be starting this game Sunday night. We will get the national TV matchup of Tua and Justin Herbert next Sunday. Oh, by the way, a game that is going to be accompanied by a live Dolphins Talk watch-along right here on the Dolphins Talk YouTube channel and the I Am a Miami Dolphin Fan Facebook page. I will be live with Mike Oliva, watching the game and reacting to it live here with you. So we hope that if you've got a second screen, you can set up a second screen and watch along with us on Sunday and hear our live reactions as the Dolphins take on the Chargers in what has become actually a really, really, really big game next Sunday night, a game that I'm sure NBC is very excited to have on their airwaves next week. So, Brain, any other parting words for the people before we get out of here?
Look, the Dolphins were not going to go 14-3. They were going to lose a couple of games. Like, it's okay. They did not get completely destroyed. I know, like, at the end of the day, you look at the score and you say, well, you lost by 16 points, and that doesn't look good. But they were literally at the 49ers 36-yard line in the fourth quarter and had a 50-50 ball that would have given them a first down inside the 49ers 35 halfway through the fourth quarter with a chance to take the lead. Like, this was a game that was up for grabs in the fourth quarter, and the 49ers made more plays down the stretch, and they made more plays, frankly, throughout the game. The Dolphins need to play better to win games like this against good football teams, especially if they're going to have to be on the road. But, like, let's chill out a little bit. It's one game. Like, you won 5 games in a row coming into this game. Anybody objective, look, the national media has been singing the praises of the Miami Dolphins for the last month. They've been singing the praises of Tua and this entire Dolphins team. And even everybody around the country was all over taking the 49ers to cover. People could see from a mile away that this was going to be a tough ask for the Dolphins to go into San Francisco and win. They lost. They fell short. Is it disappointing? Of course. everything is still right in front. They could still win the AFC East. If they win next week, we're going to be sitting here talking about hyping up a game against the Bills that if we win, we're taking full-on control of the AFC East. The Bills right now are the number 1 seed in the AFC. That's how much everything can change in 1 week. Beat the Chargers. That's all that matters. Like, beat the Chargers, we're all good. Lose to the Chargers, and then things get a little scary.
Well, I've got to share a comment here on that's coming in live from YouTube from Patrick Mullen. He says, Aaron, you're bargaining. The offense was exposed as one-dimensional against a competent defense. The defense has consistently proved it can't stop anyone but the Texans and the Steelers.
Oh, I agree that our defense is questionable, and I think that's the problem. Offensively, I'm not that worried. I think Tua had a rough game. I think he can play better. I think getting Teron Armstead back is going to help. But the more important thing is, how many defenses are you going to play the rest of the year that are like the San Francisco 49ers?
Buffalo.
That's it.
That's fair.
So if you've got 5 games left in your schedule and your offense can play at a very high level in 5 of those 6 games, I think you're okay. Now,
you
want to get into the discussion, is this team good enough?
The Jets are on the schedule too.
If you want to get into the discussion about whether the team is good enough to win the Super Bowl, that's a totally different argument, and one that I'm totally on board to have. But I think it's a little too early for it, and we've already kind of addressed how like the expectations should be raised. Beat the Chargers, and you're fine. Most people expected them to lose this game. I expected them to lose this game. Would I have loved to see them win it? Does it suck the way that they lost it? Sure. But it's not like they got outclassed. They got outplayed. They got beat legitimately. They didn't get outclassed.
You're saying they at least belonged in the game, is what you're saying.
They were right there. They were right there. And I don't want to hear the whole thing about, well, they were only right there because Brock Purdy was in instead of Jimmy Garoppolo, because Brock Purdy played about as well as Jimmy Garoppolo ever plays.
I mean, that's
that's the whole point. It's like the only people that are really, really upset about, what took place and the way the Dolphins lost this game, they're upset because they lost to Brock Purdy. But Brock Purdy played well and deserves credit.
Yeah, it's miserable to be the first team that loses to Brock Purdy. I mean, hopefully with any luck,
right up there in the upper echelon with Thaddeus Lewis, in quarterbacks that had no business beating the Dolphins and did so in a big game in December.
Well, here's the thing. Brock Purdy is now going to be the guy that's going to take the 49ers as far as they're going to go this season because Garoppolo's out for the season. So
we'll see.
So we'll see.
I liked what I saw. I thought that kid played really well. I thought he played a lot better than Skylar Thompson.
So yes, I think that's fair. So
not
you're saying
just Skylar Thompson today.
The Dolphins picked the wrong quarterback in the 7th round. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
All right, fair enough. Well, there it is. So the Miami Dolphins fall to 8-4 and now are set up for an enormous game next week against the Los Angeles Chargers. It is just going to be an absolutely massive game. We are going to be back here on the Same Old Dolphin Show, previewing it for you later this week. So make sure you join us. Make sure you're subscribed to the Dolphins Talk YouTube channel and that you turn on notifications so you're notified every single time we go live. And make sure you're following us on Twitter at Amplified Rock, at Aaron the Brain. Make sure you go to manscaped.com and use the promo code Dolphins Talks to save 20% off on some of the best men's below the belt grooming equipment and liquid formulations out there. Make sure you go to trueclassic.com and get yourself set up with some awesome t-shirts. Use the promo code Dolphins Talk there to save 25% off of your order. If you spend over $100, you get free shipping with that as well. True Classic are awesome shirts. I got my True Classic Henley on, my green True Classic Henley on underneath my Waddle jersey right now. Yeah, go set yourself up there. You won't regret it. Excellent products there as well. And play some wagers at BetUS and join us later this week as we preview the Dolphins game against the Los Angeles Chargers. It is going to be a very, very big game. The stakes are going to be very, very high, and we got to hope that the Dolphins can get a big bounce back performance. Hopefully Teron Armstead is back for this one. It sounds like it might be a possibility. We're going to see where we're at, but hopefully the Dolphins can come back in a big way, get off the schneid, get off of the mat, and come back and get a big win to go back east to take on the Buffalo Bills in what would be a huge battle potentially for first place in the AFC East. We'll be back to preview it later this week. In the meantime, as always, take care of yourselves and each other, and we will talk to you again next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Go Dolphins!
Just beat Justin Herbert and all is good.